I shared a love with my husband that lasted until our hair turned gray. Before he departed this mortal coil, he chastised me in the presence of our children and grandchildren. If there is a next life, I shall surely marry Princess Fulan. You, a mere orphan of lowly status, are the blemish upon my existence. Though I hailed from humble origins, I was the true love of my husband. In his youth, he withstood familial pressure to take me, a destitute orphan, as his bride. I once believed our story would be a tale of romance. After laboring for 40 years, it has become nothing but a farce. Upon reopening my eyes, I found myself returned to 40 years prior. It was on the day I fled famine and first encountered Chu Huaiming. I stood before the brothel madam in tattered clothing, allowing her to appraise me, intent on selling myself into a courtesan's life. Gaining entry would ensure a full meal, a necessity more vital than anything else for one on the brink of starvation. Purity and reputation are matters only the daughters of noble families possess the luxury to contemplate. Yet it was during my desperate sale that I encountered Chu Huaiming. One of his friends remarked, "Why is it that even the foulest beggar can enter? Truly, this sullies the ambience of this place." Thus, I was expelled by the madam, but Chu Huaiming apologized on behalf of his friend and gifted me a handful of silver, allowing me to survive that winter. In due time, I repaid him 100-fold and regarded him as my benefactor. He knew my past better than anyone, yet in his final moments, he chose to humiliate me before our descendants. They, too, were swayed by his words, disregarding years of shared affection and nurturing. They cast me into a pigpen, disposing of me in a mass grave, while they celebrated with gongs and drums, arranging a ghostly marriage between Chu Huaiming and Princess Fulan. Soon it would be time for my first encounter with Chu Huaiming. I wished to avoid the path of my former life and resolved to turn away. However, the madam did not pursue me with the same urgency as in my past. Instead, she called for others to bind me. This yellow-haired girl is undoubtedly a beauty in the making. She must not be let go. With proper training, if she fails to comply, I'll simply put her up for sale. Regardless, I shall incur no loss. 2. I fled desperately, pursued by the enforcers of the brothel. After enduring a few blows, I finally found the butcher shop from my memories and darted inside to hide. The butcher was still busy chopping meat. I claimed I had no money to pay, yet they insisted on forcing me into a life of degradation, prompting the butcher to hasten his work. His large frame and dark skin made him appear fierce at first glance, and he looked even more intimidating when enraged. The enforcers dared not approach him, opting instead to search for me elsewhere. Once they departed, I emerged to express my gratitude and offered to help him earn money. He embedded his cleaver into the chopping board and stepped closer, questioning me. "Are you jesting? Whose little girl are you? So audacious." Undeterred by his demeanor, I fervently promoted myself. When he heard that my entire family had perished, leaving only me, he showed a flicker of compassion. "If you truly possess talent, I shall provide you with a meal." Thus began my residency at the butcher shop, aligning with the scorn they had heaped upon me in my past life. I returned to where I belonged. Under my astute management, the butcher shop flourished. He Lanyi grew increasingly warm towards me, constantly inquiring if I wished for more to eat. Under his generous care, I gained considerable weight, becoming healthier than ever, even surpassing my plumpest days in the Chu household. Being favored by Chu Huaiming, my appearance was evidently commendable. Coupled with my diligent efforts at the shop, my industrious nature became apparent. Shedding the emaciated look, suitors soon began to express interest. Despite my rejections, it proved futile, and this time, they brought a suitor directly to me for inspection. I grasped Hilanya's hand, smiling subtly. My journey was to seek my fiancé. He, feeling bashful, maintained that before marriage, he referred to me only as his sister, leading to misunderstandings. Hilanyi appeared uncomfortable. I whispered to him, "Please assist me. We must work together to expand the butcher shop." He momentarily set aside his reluctance, even taking my hand in his. Suddenly, a noise from the alley behind us caught my attention, revealing a hurried figure retreating. Likely another would-be suitor who had retreated upon realizing the difficulty of the task. The following day, news reached me that Chu Huaiming sought the hand of Princess Fulan. As I was occupied with the shop's accounts, I muttered, "How surprising, so late." I had anticipated Chu Huaiming would be eager to propose to the princess, especially since in my previous life he had been deeply enamored with her until his death. Even his descendants remembered his profound affection, allowing them to reunite as a couple in the afterlife. 3. A grand procession adorned with 10 miles of red bridal attire and a palanquin carried by 8 bearers. Everyone praised Chu Huaiming for his genuine love for Princess Fulan, asserting that he had bestowed upon her all manner of honors. I recalled my own meager wedding in my past life. As He Lan Yi feigned agreement with the praises of others, I whispered, "Do not believe such fanciful tales." The 10 miles of red bridal attire were provided by her family, and the princess's dowry has no connection to Chu Huaiming. This man truly knew how to embellish his own image. He Lan Yi appeared astonished. Is there such shamelessness? After hearing further accolades for Chu Huaiming, he struggled to continue his compliance. He tugged me inside, quietly asking, "Do you know the groom? Why do you seem to harbor dislike for him?" How could I know such a prominent figure? He Lan Yi continued, "It matters not if you do know him. If you claim to bear a grudge against him, I shall refrain from mentioning him in your presence." His sincerity was apparent, yet I could not voice my true feelings. I merely recalled how I had been ridiculed when I entered the city. His face darkened, and he erupted in anger. He is truly despicable. Business was bustling, leaving little time for private discussions. He brought up the events of the previous day. His dark complexion made it difficult to perceive when he blushed, yet his awkward manner of speaking revealed his discomfort. "Sister, if you speak of this publicly, what will you do when you genuinely find someone you care for? Affection cannot sustain one." I had meant what I said upon our first meeting. Our relationship was not one of mutual affection, but rather a partnership in life. He Lan Yi did not acquiesce to my suggestion, yet he no longer resisted my use of him as a shield. Until the day Chu Huaiming came to seek me out. Clearly newlywed, yet dark circles marred his eyes. He commanded his servants to drag me from the butcher shop and bluntly inquired, "Why did you not go to the brothel?" His words revealed he too had been reborn, igniting a fury within me that made me wish to strike him down. I dusted off my garments and stood tall, responding with dignity, "I am a poor woman, fortunate to be rescued by my husband and thus spared from peril." Chu Huaiming was visibly agitated. "Husband? You mean that dark, unattractive butcher?" He Lan Yi was not ugly. He had striking eyebrows and bright eyes, though he was somewhat darker and stockier. His name itself hinted at foreign lineage, which did not endear him in the capital. "Pray, mind your manners. What concern is it of yours what my husband is like? You dare claim this has nothing to do with me?" Chu Huaiming charged forward, knocking aside his servant to shield me behind him. "I am the head of the household. If you have matters to discuss, address them with me, rather than targeting a defenseless woman." His gaze fell upon our clasped hands, and in anger, he laughed derisively, saying, "If you come to me now, I may choose to overlook this transgression." I was perplexed as to why Chu Huaiming sought me. He had already wed Princess Fulan, seemingly rectifying the regrets of his past life. Why return to me? Even if he intended to offer me the position of a concubine, it should have been at the beginning of my arrival in the capital. Now, 2 months had passed, and the opportunity had long since waned. For He Lan Yi brandished his cleaver at him, shouting in fury, "What do you think you are?" He is a butcher by trade, skilled at slaughtering pigs, and had arrived wielding a bloodied cleaver, looking as if he were ready to fight at any moment. Yet, Chu Huaiming showed no fear. "I am the heir of the Duke of Dingyuan. If you deliver her to me, I shall forgive this affront." The Chu family indeed held a title, yet in my previous life, Chu Huaiming had not been the heir. I could not discern whether he was lying or had usurped the title upon his rebirth. He Lan Yi gripped my hand tightly, raising his voice to confront him. "Does being a duke's heir grant you the right to seize another's wife? There lies a street of brothels next door, frequented by many dignitaries and nobles. There are those of even higher status than the Duke of Dingyuan." Noticing onlookers gathering, Chu Huaiming's arrogance quickly dissipated, leaving him to utter a harsh remark. "She bears the face of a calamity. Being with you will only invite endless trouble. Better to send her to my residence, where my benevolence may grant her a chance at life." He disregarded the fallen servants and departed amidst He Lan Yi's furious curses. He Lan Yi cast me anxious glances, rolling up my sleeves to reveal bruises on my wrists. "I have arrived too late. You have suffered unjustly. I shook my head but remained silent. I was adept in business and aware of certain future events. My partnership with He Lanyi had already begun to thrive. Yet Chu Huaiming's sudden interest had disrupted everything. My mind was in disarray, and I hardly noticed that He Lanyi had yet to release my hand. Until he proposed, "Shall we marry?" I was jolted from my reverie, staring at him in astonishment. His earlier words echoed in my mind. "We must work together to expand the shop." He smiled at me, appearing somewhat carefree. "Even if it costs me my life, I shall protect you." Lacking education and skills, I understood that a man who could not even safeguard his own wife was less than a beast. The anxiety regarding Chu Huaiming's rebirth was replaced by a bewildered amusement. I teasingly inquired, "Do you have feelings for me?" His dark face flushed instantly. I felt a hint of shyness in his gaze, yet I readily agreed. Chu Huaiming was acutely concerned with his reputation. He could never resort to kidnapping another's wife. Marriage would serve as the perfect shield, allowing me to help him avert the impending disaster. Moreover, he hails from humble beginnings, possessing a warm heart yet lacking in wit, rendering him easily manageable. He will not, a century hence, proclaim my unworthiness, nor become the next Chu Huaiming. The matrimonial affairs of common folk are conducted with simplicity. A piece of red cloth and a banquet table suffice to conclude the event. However, under my stewardship, the butcher's business flourished. He Lanyi also found himself with a modicum of spare coin. Remarkably, he undertook the arrangements for our wedding with a certain decorum. I prepared my dowry in the rented abode, while he rode a borrowed horse to fetch me. The ordinarily clad man donned a ceremonial robe, meticulously adorned, and appeared extraordinarily handsome. In my heart, I silently refuted Chu Huaiming's assessment of him. He Lanyi was undeniably pleasing to the eye, he merely lacked vision. Yet, upon smiling, all elegance fled. Grinning widely, he inquired, "Sister, do you think I look handsome today?" I played along, praising, indeed, the most dashing young man for miles around. His grin widened, and I feared I might burst into laughter, hastily lowering my veil. The gallant steed paved the way, with a crimson sedan chair trailing behind. He Lanyi radiated joy. Yet fate conspired against us, as we unexpectedly encountered Chu Huaiming on horseback. He obstructed our path, forcing the sedan chair to a halt. "Oh, how festive this is," he remarked with a sardonic tone. I discerned his identity amidst the pointed jibes. How could he be here? Fortunately, he was accompanied by others, seemingly merely out for a ride. Having delayed our auspicious moment, he soon departed. I muttered a curse under my breath, tinged with a hint of regret. This lifetime's marriage was, in truth, more elaborate than the last. After all, I was the woman who had nearly severed ties with Chu Huaiming's family, compelling him to marry me through threats of death. Aside from a small sedan chair, there was only a half-open side door. No guests, no rush for makeup or wedding gifts. He Lanyi had personally ventured into the mountains to procure 2 large geese for me. After simmering them, the flavor was exquisite. It was also He Lanyi who taught me that the disparities between individuals can be greater than those between man and dog. Missing the auspicious moment left me with an unsettling feeling. Yet, with Chu Huaiming having exited the city, I hoped he would not cause further trouble. He Lanyi and I exchanged vows in a simplified ceremony, wary of any potential disruptions. Ironically, the more one fears something, the more likely it is to occur. Just as the elderly tofu vendor next door had called for us to bow as husband and wife, a group armed with knives burst in. Leading them was a striking woman, her demeanor fierce. With a flick of her sword, she sent my red veil flying. On this day of marriage, I had dressed with care, appearing more radiant than usual. Gasps of astonishment erupted from the crowd, while He Lanyi instinctively shielded me behind him, demanding, "What do you intend to do?" The woman raised an eyebrow, her expression a blend of amusement and undisguised disdain for me. "I merely wish to see which little harlot has ensnared my husband's heart, thus shattering our agreement and insisting on taking you as a concubine." Her words dripped with venom, revealing her intense animosity towards me. I quickly deduced her identity. Princess Falon, the newlywed of the Chu family. I circumvented He Lanyi, retrieving my fallen veil and brushing off the dust. "I do not know your esteemed husband. Besides, if such a thing were true, would it not be preferable for me to marry?" Why then must you ruin my wedding? Princess Fulan retorted, that cannot be. I owe him a life. And having made a promise, I must fulfill it. I cannot allow you to wed another. Their debt of gratitude must be repaid with my life? What kind of logic was that? With a wave of her hand, her entourage surrounded me, intent on forcibly seizing me. On this joyous day, Heelan grasped a butcher's knife once more. I pressed his hand down, shaking my head at him. Do not act. If you do, it will be our fault. She was a royal princess, while we were but commoners. Should any harm befall her, all blame would rest upon us. The neighbors who had come to celebrate had already scattered in fear. My own dispatched people mingled among the crowd. Heelan held my hand, concern evident in his eyes. I pried his fingers away, resolutely stepping forward, whispering to him, trust me, no matter what, do not approach. I stood before Princess Fulan, allowing her to scrutinize me with disdain. As a concubine, you should not be clad in vibrant red wedding garments. Someone, strip her of her bridal attire. She intended to humiliate me, and 2 attendants advanced to pin me down, ready to tear at my clothing. A slip of my shoulder revealed a glimpse of white. Heelan charged forward, wielding the butcher's knife. His fierce countenance startled the attendants holding me down. Though I knew he only wished to rescue me, I could not help but pinch his arm. Did I not say, no matter what, you must not approach? He replied in a low, stifled voice, you are my wife. I must protect you. I did not comprehend the intricacies of their world, nor did I wish to survive by relying on the whims of a woman. Sister, I cannot endure this indignity. However, even if I and he were to fight back, it would merely result in a drop of blood staining her pearl-embroidered shoes. Under the intimidating gaze of the princess, the attendants advanced once more. I pushed Heelan away, threatening them, you wish to make me a concubine to serve your master? If that is the case, I shall be one of your household's women. Should he learn that you harmed me today, who knows whether he would tolerate you? Princess Fulan had just mentioned how much Chu Huaiming desired me. Realizing this, they hesitated, unwilling to act further. The princess kicked each of them, stepping forward to strip me of my garments herself. Yet, she was thwarted by her own arrogance. Step aside, this princess will handle it herself. She had trained in martial arts, while I had endured much hardship during my flight from calamity. Overpowered by her strength, I had no choice but to submit to her whims. I had only heard of men abducting brides, never of their wives doing so on their behalf. The princess's actions raised suspicions about whom this concubine was truly meant for. My words stymied her. Gripping my clothing, she expressed her disdain by turning away. My wedding robe hung loosely upon me. Had I been a lady of noble birth, I would have been compelled to take my own life in shame to preserve my reputation. Fortunately, I was not. I was willing to sacrifice anything to survive. Meanwhile, Heelan maneuvered behind the princess, raising the butcher's knife. In the next instant, a whip cracked through the air, striking Princess Fulan's arm. A voice of reprimand followed. What audacity! How dare you act recklessly beneath the emperor's gaze? Before Princess Fulan could register her pain, she spotted a familiar face. With a gasp, she fell to her knees. Your Highness, I did not intend to disturb you. I was merely disciplining an unruly concubine. Princess Chanlu raised an eyebrow, her expression tinged with disdain. I was unaware that my people had become your concubines. Dismounting, she removed her cloak and draped it over me. I was inclined to believe that Chu Huaiming would not cause any further trouble today. However, relying on the character of others for my safety was the most futile of strategies. My demise in my previous life stemmed from placing too much trust in Chu Huaiming. Just as he rescued Princess Fulan and forged a bond with her, I too would seize the opportunity to ascend to nobility. The princess swiftly dismissed Fulan, then plucked a hairpin from her hair and inserted it into my disheveled locks. A little adornment for you. I tightened the cloak around me, awkwardly enduring the princess's reprimand for not inviting her to the wedding feast. My attire was in disarray beneath the cloak, leaving me unable to present myself properly. Yet Heelan, as if invigorated, took the hairpin and tidied my disheveled hair, skillfully arranging it into an elegant coif. The princess's gaze softened towards him. He is rather useful. I smiled shyly, introducing Heelan to her. Though the princess had departed, the remaining guests had long fled in terror. The banquet table, laden with dishes, lay in disarray. The individuals who had invited the princess, along with her guards, arrived shortly thereafter. They took their seats, becoming the sole witnesses to our wedding. As we continued with the ceremony, we awaited the moment to enter the bridal chamber, after which the princess departed with a smile. Once she was gone, Heelan embraced me tightly. "It is my inadequacy that has subjected you to such indignities." Heelan is a most intriguing individual. Rather than blaming me for the troubles I have invited, he instead chastises himself. Yet, were it not for his peculiar disposition, I would not have sought him out. I patted his back, a smile gracing my lips as I reassured him, "Do not worry, my dear husband. See, I have not been harmed at all." He embraced me tightly, refraining from questioning why I had spent money or probing into my unusual identity. Instead, he held me close and vowed, "I will certainly protect you. I will be able to safeguard you." The distinction between will and can is significant. I never anticipated his protection, yet I could not help but be moved by his earnestness. "What do you plan to do?" I inquired. "They are members of the royal aristocracy. Crushing us would be no different than squashing ants." On that day, Heelan gripped his weapon and declared, "Noble lords and princes, do they not possess any courage?" The surname Heelan, upon first hearing, seems quite elegant, yet in foreign tongues, it translates to horse. Heelan, wild horse. That day, I caught my first glimpse of his ambition, accompanied by a profound sense of clarity. Who was born a royal aristocrat by nature? Why must there always be those who tread upon me, humiliating and belittling me, exhausting my worth while regarding me with disdain? If someone must stand atop, why should it not be I? Ambition burgeoned wildly within me, yet reality remained unforgiving. After the ruckus caused by Princess Fulan, our neighbors, who had come to partake in the feast, were eager to distance themselves from us. Those who once feasted with us no longer dared to show their faces. The butcher's business plummeted, with even the prospect of selling it leading to price cuts. The commoners do not engage in conflict with the authorities. A stark truth that materialized before my eyes. I removed my hairpin and spoke to Heelan. "If you trust me, grant me 3 days, and I shall resolve this matter." I came to rescue him, not to drag him into the mire. Even though the actions of Chu Huaiming and the princess were entirely unforeseen, I could still protect him. Upon hearing my words, Heelan's expression darkened. "At worst, we can find another place to survive. Do not subject yourself to such trivial grievances." I chuckled, playfully tapping his chest. "Where are your thoughts wandering? If I truly intended to submit to you, why would these troubles still linger?" He grasped my hand and slipped it beneath his clothing. Through his taut muscles, I could feel his heart racing. The red candle still flickered, casting a warm glow upon my cheeks. "This is a sentiment I should express," I said. "Trust me. I can resolve this matter and protect you." In the warmth of the silk tent, a moment together is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. I knelt against him, half my body resting upon his, teasingly proclaiming, "My dear husband, it seems we ought to make up for our wedding night." In that chaotic day, my mind had been too troubled to contemplate such matters. He, despite his teasing demeanor, was more restrained than those self-proclaimed scholars of virtue, treating our union as mere pretense, daring not to touch me. Fortunately, I was no novice. I seized the initiative, finding greater comfort than I had in my previous life of several decades. Afterward, I nestled in his embrace, my fingers tracing his waist and abdomen. Heelan's breath was low and heavy, tinged with a hint of impatience. His once rough voice now sounded almost plaintive. "Rest well, please do not touch." I feigned innocence as I gazed at him. "If you feel wronged, you may also reciprocate." He did not respond, and I continued my playful antics until his hands encircled my waist, finally unable to restrain himself. He demonstrated everything I had just taught him. Ultimately, he exhausted me, while he seemed invigorated. I had initially intended to feign unconsciousness, yet now I genuinely felt faint. Thankfully, I was healthier than in my past life, and by deliberately appearing weak, I would awaken sooner than he anticipated. That night, he arose and departed, and I too left a note behind. Heelan was initially illiterate, but he was astute. I had only taught him for a little over a month, yet he could comprehend simple notes. Alas, in my previous life, 3 days later, at the Maple Appreciation Banquet, I was a member of the princess's entourage, while he served as the personal guard to the prince. We exchanged glances in the princess's residence, both our faces etched with confusion. He towered over others, his distinctive dark complexion standing out. The princess spotted him at first glance and inquired about the situation. I too was at a loss. Who could have anticipated this? In this world, even if the poor wished to serve, they could not find suitable avenues. Who would dare to believe that He would resolve my troubles? He immediately secured a position as the personal guard of the Duke of Dingyuan. Even if Chu Huaiming still desired to pursue me, his father would oppose the match. One could simply slap him and send him off to play elsewhere. The princess quickly grasped the underlying significance, raising an eyebrow with a smile. Your judgment is commendable. Yet, the next moment, her smile faded, and with a pointed remark, she added, I only hope it remains so year after year, without any change of heart in the future. For that would be truly heartbreaking. At merely 32, the traces of time were already visible at the corners of her eyes. I wished not to touch upon her sorrows. Thus I maintained my silence. Yet, there were those who, oblivious to the unspoken cues, insisted on ingratiating themselves with the princess. Ironically, they lacked the ability to flatter, uttering only unpleasant words. The scenery of the princess's residence was indeed delightful. The maple leaves here were redder than elsewhere, and she still possessed her charm. She nudged the man beside her, and a youth of about 16 or 17 stood forth, with rosy lips and white teeth, smiling innocently at the princess. He bore a slight resemblance to the deceased prince consort. However, the princess did not favor him, retorting, What is stained with the blood of the prince consort is naturally redder than elsewhere. Others only knew of the princess's love for her consort, and after his death, she seemed to age 10 years, closing her heart to love. Yet I knew the truth. The prince consort had died by her hand, in a most tragic manner. This was indeed an unwise topic to broach. The princess, with her myriad of graceful gestures, continued to smile, yet her presence frightened them to their cores. Finding it dull, she commanded that they be taken away and whipped 30 times. The guests gasped, the atmosphere plummeting to an icy chill. Even the prince was compelled to appease this sister of his, coaxing her repeatedly. It was during this time that He approached me. Are you now following the princess? I parroted back. And are you now with the prince? He replied tersely. I had inquired around. The prince was the most feared by the Chu family. When I offered myself as a servant, he noticed my stature, though I lacked martial skills, yet possessed innate strength. Thus he kept me by his side, and even secured a master for me. His words carried a certain literary flair, likely a result of his daily exposure to the sycophants around the prince. Yet I understood the psychology of those around him. They would not regard him with any particular esteem. If there was anything about him that the prince valued, it was probably his straightforwardness and loyalty. However, on the other hand, it could also be interpreted as naivety and gullibility. The prince is not a good man. Be cautious around him. If the opportunity arises, you may leave the royal residence. I can take care of you. I even mentioned that the princess was no virtuous soul. Rumors were circulating that she had personally killed her prince consort, and he ought to be wary. He countered my words, no longer as inclined to trust my every word as before, stirring a twinge of discomfort within me. Moreover, we had only just married, and now we were to be separated. While I mourned this, he stealthily wrapped his arm around my waist. We have not seen each other for many days. And this is all you say? He reminisced. You left a note that day and then vanished. I searched for you for ages, nearly frantic. As he spoke, he leaned down to plant a gentle kiss on my neck. A tingling sensation spread, prompting me to push him away. We're still in public. Do mind your boundaries. I glanced around, noting that there was no one nearby. He leaned in for another kiss. I was uncertain whether to inform him that both the prince and princess had hidden guards, quietly observing every potential threat around them. I was aware, and so was he. I could not fathom how many eyes were concealed in the shadows, watching us. I chose not to divulge this awkward circumstance to He. However, as soon as he returned, he was teased by the prince. You are quite the flirt. You dare to act recklessly in the princess's residence? If the elder princess finds you displeasing and directly demands your life, I would be utterly powerless to assist you. Hilanya's neck thickened, and his face flushed crimson as he stared wide-eyed at him, asking, "How does your highness know this?" Ah, he was indeed aware of the secret guards. I stifled a laugh, too afraid to look at him. After He Lan Yi stammered to clarify our identities, he managed to avert scandal. However, the crown prince insisted on having him introduce me. He only wanted to ensure my protection through He Lan Yi's allegiance as his personal guard, and thus, he readily acquiesced. Upon seeing my face, the crown prince paused momentarily before chuckling teasingly. "You two do not seem particularly well matched. He Lan Yi is indeed fortunate." I pressed my lips together, unable to muster a smile. He Lan Yi nudged my waist, prompting me to bow and express my gratitude. He stood there grinning foolishly. "Yes, marrying my wife is my greatest blessing. In the future, we should interact more. It would be beneficial for your wife to reside in the royal palace, where it is safer." He continued to grin, ready to respond. I elbowed him lightly. "The princess finds me useful. It would be inappropriate for me to go over." By invoking the princess as a shield, the crown prince finally ceased his insistence. Yet, as He Lan Yi escorted me back, he appeared somewhat reluctant. The crown prince, being a prince, certainly resided in a far safer environment than the princess's palace, and he remained the Chu family's steadfast support. With him backing us, we need not fear Chu Huaiming. Why would you not accompany me? It would be safer for us to live together. Seeing my resolute demeanor, he added with a pitiful tone, "I miss you too. We are newlyweds. Think of me as well." The burly man tugged at my sleeve, shaking it, creating a rather jarring sight. My lips twitched as I reminded him of the secret guards. He stiffened, awkwardly retracting his hand, clearly having forgotten the matter entirely. Today, numerous guests were invited. Princess Fulan and Chu Huaiming also received invitations. Delayed by some matter, they arrived an hour late. As they sought to present their gifts to the princess, they stumbled upon us engaged in a playful tug-of-war. "What are you doing here?" Chu Huaiming exclaimed in astonishment, as if I were destined to languish in the shadows, waiting for him to rescue me. Princess Fulan, noticing his lingering affection for me, expressed her discontent. "In the princess's palace, how can you behave so shamelessly? Do you require me to bring a bed over for you to perform a live show?" She was particularly vexed by Chu Huaiming's attitude towards me, eager to engrave the notion of my being a fallen flower into his mind. A flicker of displeasure crossed Chu Huaiming's eyes as he questioned me. "You truly have submitted to him? Have you lost your mind to engage in such self-deprecating behavior? Have I ever wronged you?" I glanced at Princess Fulan, reminding him, "The princess is your wife, and I hold no interest in the Chu family. I kindly ask you to maintain your decorum and refrain from speaking foolishly." I not only did not distance myself from He Lan Yi, but instead intertwined my pinky with his. "Come, the maple leaves are turning red. Let me take you to enjoy the scenery." We turned to leave. Yet Chu Huaiming refused to let go. He stepped forward, grasping my empty hand forcefully, attempting to pull me into his embrace, as he had done countless times before in our past life. After all, we had once shared a deep bond. How could we be devoid of feelings? Regrettably, all I felt now was revulsion. He Lan Yi drew his blade, pressing it against Chu Huaiming's arm. "It is you who should be embarrassed." His face contorted with rage. Ready to strike, he growled, "Let go." Startled, Chu Huaiming released me, muttering to salvage his pride, "You are merely a servant to the crown prince. Do you truly believe yourself to be something formidable? Power is the finest elixir." Those who once risked their lives merely to tarnish his shoes now seemed capable of claiming his life. Yet what is power, built upon fragile foundations? He approached the crown prince, directly expressing his desire for He Lan Yi. He Lan Yi and I were summoned before the crown prince. He flicked a jade bracelet in his hand, the sound echoing, instructing his attendants to repeat his words, and then asked, "He Lan, what do you believe I should do? You both are my right and left arms. This truly puts me in a predicament." A frown crossed his face, yet his gaze was fixed upon me. He awaited my response. He Lan Yi had not anticipated such convolutions. He thought that by aligning himself with the crown prince, he would find himself secure. In truth, his actions were already more decisive than many, and he possessed both luck and capability to support him. Unfortunately, he did not understand that in the eyes of the affluent, lives are as cheap as grass. One or two, their hearts are quite tainted. With a grave expression, Hilanya's veins bulged as he clenched his jaw, stating, I came to follow His Highness, not to sell myself to the royal palace. The moment those words left his lips, I knew there would be no easy resolution today. The crown prince chuckled lightly. Chu Huaiming smirked, his lips curling disdainfully while his gaze turned coldly towards Hilanyi, finally landing on me. His eyes filled with determination. 3 days would suffice for me to uncover the truth. On the day he rescued Princess Fulan, he did not propose marriage to her. Instead, he visited the brothel where I had nearly sold myself. He commanded all the women in the establishment to come forth, inspecting each one but failing to find the one he sought. He was searching for me, but not on the day I had nearly sold myself. In that moment, I realized he intended for me to descend into the depths of degradation, only to rescue me afterward, thus fulfilling his vindictive narrative from my past life. Had I not fled, had I truly succumbed to the brothel, I shudder to think what a wretched existence awaited me. I stepped forward, stating, if the prince does not wish to keep Hilanyi, the princess is in need of a personal guard. The crown prince paused his flicking of the bracelet, raising an eyebrow, intrigued. Can you manage the princess's affairs? It was merely a passing mention from the princess that I had retained. I seem to have yet to hear you introduce yourself. I only know you as Hilanya's newlywed. I performed a deep bow before continuing. I am the princess's advisor, having recently begun to accompany her. Until this moment, the crown prince remained unaware of my name. So you are an advisor? I had thought you were a newly promoted maid. Your attire is rather plain. Could it be otherwise? I have no wealth. He bestowed the jade bracelet upon me. Since you are the princess's advisor, accompany her well. This is a token for you. The bracelet still bore the warmth of his hand as a servant slipped it onto mine. I maintained my composure, thanking him while adding, the princess has summoned me for matters. I must take my leave. The smile faded from the crown prince's face, and he nodded stiffly. I turned to depart. Hearing the attendants behind me critique my demeanor, such lack of decorum, had you been from our household, you would have been swiftly punished. Furthermore, I could sense the gazes of Hilanyi and Chu Huaiming, one burning with intensity, the other icy and cold. Without looking back, I walked away step by step. I recounted the events to the princess without alteration. She displayed no surprise, clearly having been aware of the occurrences. She pinched my chin, leaning closer to scrutinize me. Suddenly, she burst into laughter, her beauty radiant and lively. It seems you have yet to explain to me why Chu Huaiming has fixated on you. This is the 3rd time you have used me as a shield from disaster. You must share this amusing tale with me. I painted Chu Huaiming as a man driven by lust and disparaged the crown prince. The princess laughed heartily, her laughter causing her to tremble against my shoulder. Oh, you. Who else would dare speak thus? She recognized my words were not entirely factual, yet found amusement in them, thus refraining from further scrutiny. 3 days later, the princess's palace found itself in need of a guard. She effortlessly granted Hilanyi a chance at life. Not only did she not chastise me for my fabrications, but she also helped me to weave my lie into a tapestry of truth. Was she a good person? I could not say. I merely knew that many who occupy lofty positions have their hearts consumed by darkness. 3 days later, Chu Huaiming arrived at the princess's residence before Hilanyi. He obstructed my path, bearing the grim news of Hilanya's demise. That foolish lad, refusing to submit to the crown prince, was brutally beaten to death. I do not object to your past association with him. As long as you return, I shall take you as my secondary wife and grant you the authority of the steward of the estate. How does that sound? He spoke with a hint of exasperation regarding Princess Fulan. Previously, I had been bewitched, entirely forgetting your merits. As for Princess Fulan, he furrowed his brow, expressing disdain. She is truly of no use. Princess Fulan pursued him, emerging to slap Chu Huaiming across the face. How dare you rush off? Were you eager to malign me to your little lover? She exclaimed. What makes me so unworthy? It was your desperate plea for marriage that led me to acquiesce. Otherwise, I would still be living my carefree life. You vowed to treat me well. Yet the outcome was that you brought me into your household only to cast me aside like a worn-out shoe? Chu Huaiming, you are truly a beast. The two fell into another heated argument. However, I had no time for their squabble. My mind was consumed by the words he had just uttered. What had happened to He Lan Yi? Did his death circle back to me? Wasn't I supposed to save him? Why must I tread the same path as in my previous life? He Lan Yi was brought to the princess's residence, his body drenched in blood, teetering on the brink of death. The scene was nearly a mirror of my past life, and I stared at him in shock for a long while. The physician at the princess's residence was willing to offer assistance, but shook his head with a sigh, advising me to prepare for the worst. I snapped back to reality amidst the physician's lamentations. There was no time to ponder whether my proximity to him was a blessing or a curse. I dashed towards the princess. She awaited my arrival. I dropped to my knees, prostrating myself, pleading, "Please, Your Highness, save my husband." This was my first time kneeling before her. Initially, I had treated her with the deference of a benefactor, not as a servant would to a master. But from this day forth, everything had changed. I begged until my voice was hoarse, my forehead bleeding from repeated blows. The princess smiled, affectionately pulling me to my feet, placing a small medicine box in my hands. "This is my life-saving elixir. It can bring him back even from the brink of death. Use it to save your husband. It will be more than sufficient. Once he recovers, we shall celebrate with wine." I bowed once more in gratitude before racing out. Trembling, I opened the medicine box along the way, clutching the pills tightly. The mixture would undoubtedly taste unpleasant as it coursed through my blood. I forced it into He Lan Yi's mouth, yet he refused to swallow. My mind was flooded with images of his near-death state in my past life, his breath fading, discarded like refuse at a mass grave. With little time to contemplate, I crushed the pills, using my tongue to push them down his throat, urging him to swallow. "You must survive. You absolutely must live. Only by living can you achieve everything. Did you not say that nobility and power are not inherent? If you possess such ambition, then live at all costs." The medicine may not have been miraculous, but it was surely effective. He Lan Yi's life was preserved. The princess had said to celebrate once he recovered. Yet, as he clung to life, I would join her in revelry. The strong liquor burned as it slid down my throat like a dagger. My stomach ached slightly, and my thoughts became sluggish. The princess sat beside me, refilling my cup. She took a small sip while I emptied mine in one go. Under such circumstances, I quickly succumbed to intoxication. She inquired about my relationship with Chu Huaiming. I recounted tales of relentless calamity, of family members perishing along the way, and how I found myself contemplating selling myself into a brothel, only to be rescued by He Lan Yi. I added that the brothel had recently been abuzz with activity, claiming that Princess Fu Lan had been deceived into a state of limping. Every word I spoke pointed implicitly at him, yet I refrained from mentioning his name. I was unsure why he held me in such regard. Perhaps it was due to his lustful nature. Everything had come too easily to him, and after encountering setbacks with me, he became increasingly invested. My explanations were plausible, aligning with what she had uncovered. "And what of your connection with He Lan Yi? Even in dire straits, nearly starving to death, with your talents, you need not rely on him." I feigned drunkenness, weeping openly before her, half-truthfully declaring, "He Lan Yi sacrificed his life for me. I must protect him. I must save him, in this life and the next." Seeing me utterly inebriated, the princess realized further inquiries would yield nothing. Believing she had me firmly in her grasp, she graciously arranged for me to be escorted back to my quarters. He Lan Yi, recovering in bed, was startled to see me return in such a state. He lunged at me, searching for wounds, and only relaxed upon finding none. With him atop me, I could not maintain my feigned unconsciousness. I retched violently, expelling the contents of my stomach before hoarsely telling him, "If you do not get off me, I shall be crushed beneath you." He hastily rose, yet the movement tugged at his wounds, causing him to grimace in pain. This left me anxious, needing to support him as I unsteadily helped him back to bed. I retrieved the medicine bottle, instructing him to undress. The nature of his injuries was rather delicate, causing He Lan Yi to flush crimson as he attempted to seize the medicine. "Just give it to me. I can manage." "You cannot see the wounds. What if you apply the wrong treatment and exacerbate the pain?" I insisted, still feeling lightheaded as I pressed his hand down. "Do not fidget. I am in discomfort too. Allow me to administer the medicine, and then I can rest peacefully." He complied, though his body felt as taut as a boiled shrimp. In truth, I harbored no ulterior motives. After all, his injuries only evoked memories of his tragic demise in my previous life. Yet after my bath, He Lan Yi enveloped me tightly, his warmth dispelling the lingering chill in my heart. He asked whether the princess had troubled me, and offered his apologies. He Lan Yi was not one to apologize. He had always been brash and carefree, rarely taking matters to heart. These past few days had transformed him into an entirely different person. I grasped his hand tightly, not delving into who had wronged whom, but instead said, "Thank you for seeking the crown prince on my behalf. However, we have both erred in one regard. Power is seized, not begged for. It cannot be acquired through submission or servility. No one is a fool. I rely on the princess, while he relies on the crown prince. We are merely quenching our thirst with poison. They shelter us while seeking to extract even more from us in return. We wish to use them as stepping stones, yet they too aim to drain us dry. Even cloaked in a veneer of benevolence, their contempt is palpable." That night, we conversed extensively, and it was not until dawn that we finally succumbed to sleep. Yet at the break of day, the princess summoned me. I hurriedly covered the dark circles under my eyes with powder and rushed to meet her. She greeted me warmly, seemingly unbothered by any prior difficulties. "You have presented me with quite the conundrum. Pray, listen to how the crown prince speaks of you." She instructed me to wait behind a screen. Before long, the crown prince was ushered in, followed by Chu Huaiming. Through the gap in the screen, I glimpsed their discontented expressions. He Lan Yi proved to be a resilient character. The princess's residence had indeed attracted an intriguing individual, though he was termed a counselor in truth. He was merely a companion kept for amusement. I had brought several such individuals for the princess. I wonder if she might consider parting with any? He called out towards the door, and a multitude of charming youths and maidens rushed in, each more exquisite than the last. The princess did not refuse but pointed at Chu Huaiming and asked, "Are these for you, or for him?" Since he had brought them, they must surely serve a purpose. The crown prince openly acknowledged this, surprising the princess. "You are not typically of this disposition." The crown prince merely smiled in silence. I understood that Chu Huaiming held far too much information about the future. It would be a simple matter for him to curry favor with, or even win over the crown prince. After all, was I not doing the same with the princess? Yet, the princess had her reasons for retaining her, and she truly did not wish to part with her. If Master Chu desires her, he may come serve as a counselor for me. I am quite short-handed. Before the Prince Chung, she undermined him with a subtlety that ignited his wrath, prompting him to depart in fury. Yet, Chu Huiming cast several glances back at her, clearly captivated. After all, we are all aware that the princess ultimately prevails. As for Prince Chung, he finds himself relegated to irrelevance. Once they had left, the princess summoned me forth. You have truly made matters difficult for me," she lamented. "Difficult? Then refrain from complicating things," I thought, feeling a surge of frustration within, yet outwardly, I maintained an air of utmost deference. Once again, I knelt before her, expressing gratitude for her favoritism and vowing to dedicate my life to her service. The princess entrusted me with considerable responsibilities, delegating numerous affairs of the princess's household to my care. With the experience I had accumulated in my past life amidst the Chu family, managing a princess's estate was not insurmountable. However, to avoid arousing her suspicions, I feigned a state of disarray, frequently seeking her counsel. She then assigned Xu Huiming to work alongside me, an arrangement I had barely had time to protest before the spirited Fulan County princess approached me. She appeared far from the haughty figure she had once been at the onset of her marriage. Her eyes were shadowed, and she seemed considerably diminished in stature. Her demeanor was anxious and disconnected. Upon seeing me, she cast aside her previous sarcasm and instead inquired dryly, "Where's Chu Huiming? I must see him." The mention of Chu Huiming seemed to strip away any semblance of camaraderie from their initial meeting. It was as if she had been consumed by the imposing walls of the Chu residence, her vitality rapidly waning. I calculated the timeline. In my previous life, it was during this very period that the eldest brother's wife had conspired against me with Hilanya. Surely, Fulan County Princess would not have endured a similar experience. Given her esteemed position as the cherished white moonlight sought after by the Chu family, would they have acted so decisively to eliminate me otherwise? Desiring to remain uninvolved, I allowed others to summon the very person I had recently dispatched on numerous errands, finally managing to excuse myself under the pretense of having urgent matters to attend to. I had hoped this would grant me respite from the impending turmoil. However, to my dismay, Chu Huiming entered unannounced. Omitting any glance in my direction as he affectionately called my name, "Have you finally come to your senses? What is Heilanya compared to what we could have?" Only then did he notice Fulan County Princess. "What are you doing here?" he queried. "If I hadn't come, how would I know that you two have been clandestinely entwined behind my back?" She seemed oblivious to the gravity of the situation, insisting on entangling me further with Chu Huiming, raising her voice to make their affair public knowledge. My vision darkened upon hearing her words. Could she not refrain from placing me in the midst of their marital discord? I acknowledged my poor judgment in my past life, yet I had resolved to amend my ways. Having just assumed the role of a titled lady-in-waiting, I knew many would envy my newfound authority. Should the events of today escalate, I would undoubtedly face more defiance. Fulan County Princess persisted in her relentless pursuit, seemingly intent on binding me irrevocably to Chu Huiming. As I adjusted my hair, I sensed her emotional instability and peculiar behavior. Regrettably, my limited understanding of Fulan County Princess from my previous life left me unable to discern her true intentions. I could only address Chu Huiming, stating, "I am now a lady-in-waiting of rank. Should you continue this ruckus, I shall not be the sole object of ridicule." The princess, ever generous, would undoubtedly offer a sweet reward following a scolding. Being registered as a sixth-rank lady-in-waiting was indeed her sweet reward for me, now that his reputation was at stake. Chu Huiming could no longer remain a passive observer. He swiftly grasped the county princess's arm, questioning her in hushed tones, "What do you intend to accomplish? Must we all suffer public humiliation? Whatever the matter, it is best discussed at home." Yet, Fulan County Princess was undeterred, insisting on escalating the situation. Word of the events had reached the princess, who sought to witness my embarrassment, bringing Heilanya along for the spectacle. He, still recovering from his injuries, limped toward me, eliciting laughter from those who observed. My heart ached at the sight, yet he greeted me with an unbothered air. "Sister, have you already taken on the role of steward? You are impressive. I always knew you had a sharp mind, and working in the butcher shop before was a waste of your talents." During the initial days of our marriage, he had awkwardly referred to me as his wife, but soon reverted to his previous manner. The butcher shop was still vacant. Perhaps when time permits, we could revisit it and consider leasing it to others. I glanced toward Chu Huiming, realizing that we would need the consent of the county princess and Chu Huiming himself to avoid causing a scene that would jeopardize our business. Heilanya, possessing a character that balanced simplicity with depth, deliberately broached unrelated topics, seeking to clarify matters on my behalf. I readily played along, allowing the farce to unfold. The events of that day had stirred quite a commotion. Their curiosity would surely cleanse me of any tarnish. Yet, this back and forth left a bitter taste in my mouth. In the aftermath, I requested Heilanya to train me in martial arts, while Chu Huiming, embarrassed, refrained from visiting the princess's residence for several days. The princess, incensed, dispatched me to investigate the situation. Was this not akin to willingly placing oneself in the jaws of a tiger? Thankfully, Heilanya, recovering well, volunteered to accompany me and was not declined. Although he had nearly perished, the princess showed no signs of embarrassment upon seeing him, instead teasing me with a smile. "You two appear to be quite affectionate, inseparable as ever." I smiled shyly, my cheeks flushed, unsure of how to respond. Once we boarded the carriage and departed the princess's residence, my expression turned cold. The princess aimed to manipulate me, intending to keep Heilanya tethered to Prince Chung, leveraging his precarious state to compel my subservience and acceptance of my fate. I could not ascertain whether her hand was behind Heilanya's injury, but it was evident she was using his life to force me into submission. The princess's estate, after all, was not a benevolent place. Heilanya took my hand and said, "Sister, do not be disheartened. We are merely going to enjoy their folly. Why be gloomy? We represent the princess's household. Even in his presence, we can mock him openly, and he will have to endure it." His words resonated well, although they bore no direct relation to my troubles. I felt an inexplicable lift in my spirits, eagerly anticipating this return to familiar grounds. The Chu residence had ensnared me for over 40 years in my past life, yet this was my first visit in this new existence. Having grown accustomed to the princess's abode, I returned to the place that had once consumed my life, discovering it to be rather unremarkable, lacking in grandeur and elegance. The Chu family, much like Chu Huiming, was flawed at its core. Upon our arrival at the Chu estate, we were warmly welcomed, but the moment we expressed our desire to see Chu Huiming, discomfort washed over their faces. The mistress of the Chu family adopted a stern demeanor, stating that he was unwell and unable to receive visitors. She attempted to dismiss me outright. However, the princess would not be so easily appeased with such a flimsy excuse. Meeting Fulan County Princess was met with similar resistance. They claimed she too was ill. Regardless of the circumstances, they were determined to keep us from seeing anyone. As we departed the Chu residence, Lanya's expression darkened. What do they mean by this? Are they intentionally obstructing us? Will you face the princess's wrath upon your return? He looked at me with concern. Shall I scale the wall to ascertain the situation? If we can deceive the princess, the rest will be manageable. The term deceive held a subtle connotation. No need. Your health is still precarious. I have a plan. We returned to the princess's residence, where I recounted the Chu family's dismissive attitude and added a few provocations. Their apparent indifference toward me mirrored a lack of respect for the princess. If Chu Huiming was indeed ill, then I would invoke the princess's decree and summon the imperial physician to attend to him. Holding the decree, I entered the palace to request the physician's presence at the Chu residence. The Chu family, upon seeing the palace eunuchs following me, appeared visibly distressed yet dared not obstruct my course. Thus, I finally encountered Fulan County Princess, whose neck bore the marks of strangulation, alongside the brooding Chu Huiming. What on earth is happening? The imperial physician assessed their conditions, prescribing medication while ignoring other inquiries. When I pressed Chu Huiming on why he had not visited the princess's residence and whether he intended to defy her, he remained silent. Just as I was about to take my leave with the physician, he rasped, "Ing Chun, I regret it. I truly regret it. Heaven granted me an opportunity, yet I failed to cherish it. I ought to have borne you into my home with great ceremony, compensating for the regrets of yore. Yet I did not." Perhaps he is aware of how despicable his actions appear and chooses not to elaborate further. The arrival of spring is the finest blessing my parents could bestow upon me. However, Chu Huiming disparages my name as rustic, likening it to that of a maidservant in his household, and upon our marriage, he bestowed upon me a rather pretentious name. Since then, my true name has remained a secret known only to the two of us. He does not regret his actions. Rather, he feels he has not gained the upper hand and seeks to continue exploiting me. My heart is filled with disdain, and I have no desire to engage with him. After departing from the Chu residence, I inquired with the imperial physician regarding the diagnosis. The physician revealed that both parties were afflicted with excessive liver fire, and the princess bore external injuries. There was no grave illness, though a fierce quarrel had indeed occurred. I was somewhat taken aback. In his previous life, despite his reckless behavior, Chu Huiming had never laid a hand on me. How could he resort to violence against the princess, whom he once held dear? The physician further elucidated that 3 days prior, the princess had engaged in intimate relations, while young Master Chu had not released his seed for half a month. I gazed at him in shock. The physician chuckled. The emperor is also curious about this matter. Naturally, I must ensure it is handled properly. This is rather alarming. You practitioners of traditional medicine, accompanied by the physician, I entered the palace, first corroborating our findings before the emperor, presenting the matter in a manner that amused him before seeking to take my leave. Upon returning home, I duly informed the princess of all that had transpired. The following day, this incident became common knowledge. The princess, accustomed to a life of comfort, was incensed to encounter someone who dared to disregard her dignity and sought retribution. Yet, Chu Huiming would bear no resentment toward the princess. His ire would be directed solely at me. After several days of absence, he finally arrived at the princess's residence to hold me accountable. In front of a multitude, he approached, intending to seize my hand and take me elsewhere for discussion. But with a swift move, I executed a shoulder throw, sending him tumbling into the grass. In recent days, I had been training in martial arts with Lan Yi, and although I had yet to master any techniques, The strength I had gained from lifting pork was sufficient to subdue a frail scholar. I brushed off the dust from my hands, and Chu Huaiming glared at me with fury. How much do you loathe me to spread such matters, making them public knowledge? I regarded him with the eyes of one looking at a fool and squatted down to whisper, I am not curious about your affairs. In the end, hating the wrong person, loving the wrong person, how utterly pathetic. If you wish to comprehend the depths of my disdain, simply await further developments. I smiled subtly, a demeanor he was familiar with, reminiscent of my poised smile from our previous life. In his days, he displayed a mixture of obsession and regret, inquiring about my life following his demise in the past. I possess no inclination to reminisce with an adversary and turned to leave. Envoys arrived at the palace, delivering exotic fruits from the southern seas to the princess. She selected a sugar figurine crafted by a vendor and instructed me to deliver it to the emperor. Once again, I entered the palace to present myself, but I prostrated myself before him and voluntarily confessed to the crimes of the Chu household. How did you come by this knowledge? Because I despise the Chu family, I despise Chu Huaiming. The hatred of my past life endures into this one. We all serve someone, whether it be the reigning king, the princess, or the present emperor. Naturally, we align ourselves with whoever offers the most. The emperor is a foolish sovereign. Having favored corrupt officials in his previous life and ultimately being overthrown, a decree was issued for him to abdicate. Yet, such a man is generous with his resources and revels in chaos. Thus, I took the place of the favored eunuch from my past life, becoming the one to wield the blade, the first strike aimed squarely at the Chu family. Eunuchs leave no heirs, relying solely on the emperor. As a woman, I am but a rootless drifter, easier to control and devoid of the power to influence governance. This is my vulnerability, yet after I pledged my allegiance to the emperor, it transformed into my strength. As I executed the family, I stood before Chu Huaiming, who knelt under the oppressive weight of the imperial guard. With a swift motion, I severed his head. As the head tumbled to the ground, I declared, now you may understand the visage of my hatred toward you. Those who inspire hatred ought to perish. What is the point of dragging matters out? The blade reflected my face, half stained crimson with blood. I glanced at Princess Fulan, who, despite her trembling legs, refused to submit. I am a princess. Who among you dares to lay a hand on me? Where is the emperor? I demand to see him. He would never treat us this way. It is you. Everything is your doing. She pointed at me, unleashing a torrent of accusations. You harbor hatred born of love. You wish to force me to abdicate. I halted her nonsensical diatribe, placing the blade against her neck. Princess, young Master Chu is dead. What does love matter now? If you are so enamored with him and wish to accompany him in death, I would gladly oblige. I killed Chu Huaiming because he too had returned to life. The truths I know, he knows as well, perhaps even more. After all, I was confined within the inner chambers in my past life, while he maneuvered through the corridors of power. If a treasure were to bear twins, its value would not merely diminish tenfold. As for the others, I dispatched several who had targeted me in my previous life, while the rest were dealt with according to established protocols. I meticulously catalogued the members of the Chu family to ensure no one escaped. Once all was in order, I mounted my steed, wiping the blade clean with a cloth. It was then that He Lani approached. He stood among the crowd, his gaze filled with concern as he strained to reach my side. I shook my head at him, prompting him to halt. Yet, the complexity of his emotions deepened. I found myself unable to fully comprehend him. He, too, had never truly grasped me. As I rode past him, the onlookers made way, leaving him standing still. I tossed down the cloth, which he caught. It bore no fragrance, only the remnants of blood. The emperor was furious with my audacity in executing Chu Huaiming. Just as I returned to the palace to meet him, he hurled an inkstone at me. Blood from my forehead dripped into my eyes, blurring my vision. Yet I remained kneeling, unmoving. Your Majesty, I despise Chu Huaiming. I reiterated my initial claim. The emperor punished me with a 6-month salary reduction and ordered me to shed the official garments he had bestowed upon me, leaving me clad only in undergarments as I exited. Had I been an ordinary woman, or even the matriarch of the Chu family from my past life, I would have been compelled to take my own life in shame. Such a punishment is indeed severe. Fortunately, I am indifferent. I understand that taking shortcuts incurs a price. The Emperor's mere 6-month salary reduction subtly suggests that he still finds value in my services. However, when I appeared before Helanyi clad solely in undergarments, I startled him. He hastily draped his garment over my shoulders. "What is going on? Are you?" He fell silent, likely intending to inquire if I had been wronged, only to realize he lacked the power to avenge me. I embraced him, rising on tiptoe to kiss him. Aside from our wedding night, we had not shared such intimacy since. He instinctively recoiled, causing me to stumble slightly. I took advantage of the moment to have him lead me into the room, shutting the door behind us, finally granting us the opportunity to converse. "Sister, what on earth have you done to the Chu family? I will explain everything later, for now. Just cooperate with me." I leaned in to kiss him again. While he hesitated, the atmosphere felt as though I were coercing him. Yet, even if it requires force, the show must go on. I tore down the bed curtains, enveloping our forms, and then began to loosen his sash. Helanyi hesitated, asking if my forehead injury hurt. His body instinctively reacted, yet it was all suppressed. I rubbed my face against him, inquiring if he found me too dirty, hence his demeanor. Helanyi became flustered, fumbling to explain. I understood that mere seduction would not suffice. I leaned in to whisper in his ear, "Hurry, or neither of us will survive." I am acutely aware that Helanyi's health has not yet fully recovered, and I recognize my own exhaustion, with my mind somewhat clouded and the wound on my forehead still in need of attention. Nevertheless, individuals from the palace lurk in the shadows, compelling me to perform yet another act before them. As I stifle a sob, I find myself compelled to declare with unrestrained joy, "Chu Huaiming is dead, and I was the one who killed him. How delightful!" Helanyi's movements abruptly halted. I feared my words might frighten him, yet he appeared, even more invigorated. It could have been an illusion, but Helanyi exerted himself with increasing fervor, while those who had come to surveil me finally departed. I exhaled in relief, attempting to push Helanyi away, but he refused to relinquish his hold, instead becoming even more fervent. We toiled until the dawn approached, leaving no stone unturned. He appeared revitalized, while I, regrettably, had numerous matters to discuss with him but found myself utterly drained. I rolled my eyes at him before slipping into a deep slumber, gripping his hand tightly. "Stay with me here, do not wander off. When I awaken, we shall converse. Although we ought to return to the princess's residence after yesterday's events, I have irrevocably severed ties with her. The path ahead, every road is fraught with difficulty, and I am merely attempting one that seems more navigable, one less likely to lead to further oppression and exploitation." Upon awakening, I conversed with him about the Chu family's impending fate, declaring my allegiance to the emperor. He inquired about my wounds, questioning why I had returned in such a disheveled state. "It is a test from the emperor," I explained. "He must grasp my vulnerabilities and witness my reckless nature to be willing to wield me as a weapon for the long term." However, I had no intention of divulging these intricate and dark matters to Helanyi. I merely provided him with perfunctory replies. I was injured by accident while aiding the emperor in his murderous endeavors. Merely surviving to return is a stroke of fortune. Helanyi furrowed his brow, insisting he would accompany me in serving the emperor as a blade. "With your slight stature, what will you do if you become a target and sustain injuries?" I replied. "This is a task better suited for me. I possess ample strength and can handle the task of slaughter more adeptly than you, considering I have dispatched so many pigs." Such comparisons seem rather unfitting, do they not? "No, you are not suited for this. I have other matters to assign you." Rising from the bed, I rummaged for parchment and inscribed in fine script the intelligence I possessed regarding the military situation, handing it to him. "These are potential developments. I will seek an opportunity to recommend you to the emperor. Starting from a mid-level position, seizing the right moment, you could easily ascend. If power is the goal, military might should be paramount. Rather than serving as a mere dog in the capital, it is preferable to engage in fierce battles on the battlefield. Given Helanyi's prowess, as long as he does not become a frontline soldier, it would be unlikely for him to perish in combat. This is the path I have devised for him after much contemplation. Since you harbor ambition, strive for it. After all, serving as a dog leads to no fortunate outcome. It is easier to be a dog than to be a person, and in this capital, there is little hope for advancement. Heelin Yi has already discerned this truth. He did not hastily reject my proposal, but instead scrutinized my written words earnestly. He inquired, "How do you know these things?" His tone, ostensibly inquisitive, bore an air of certainty. I took the initiative to share my tale of rebirth, recounting the grievances I had with Chu Huaiming in my past life. He embraced me, gently patting my back. Do not fear, do not fear. It is all in the past. He is dead now, and our future will surely improve. We shall no longer endure such indignities. As for his past life, he did not inquire. Yet I suspect he comprehends. For the day he was carried back to the princess's residence, my emotions were overwhelmingly stirred. His silence suggested he was not inclined to discuss it. Heelin Yi consented to seek military merit on the battlefield, but recognized he needed an opportunity to do so. Until that moment arrives, our days will be challenging. The princess, the crown prince. I urged Heelin Yi to maintain distance from me. Under no circumstances should he plead on my behalf or debase himself for me. What followed was a protracted period of torment. The princess's gaze towards me evolved from initial rage to a more contemplative demeanor. I had thought she had chosen a commendable spouse, only to discover he was equally a wretch. He once vowed to die for her, yet now would not even beg for her. Perhaps, having narrowly escaped death once, he has grown to value his life more. Her armor left red marks upon my face as she questioned whether I regretted my misstep in pledging allegiance to the emperor. If you had merely stayed by my side, assisting me, what would you have lacked? Why endure these hardships? I have never regretted my choice. The princess's words sounded sweet. But how could she expect me to annihilate the entire Chu family? After all, whatever I could accomplish, Chu Huaiming could do as well. Or even better due to his identity and gender. Without slaying him, how could I distinguish myself and compel them to value me enough to elevate me? Yet, I still displayed a melancholy countenance, expressing my regrets to the princess. The more she listened, the more pleased her expression became, ultimately pulling me to my feet and patting my hands, saying, "Recognizing one's errors is not without merit. However, your husband is unreliable. Perhaps it would be best for me to eliminate him and find you someone better." I neither agreed nor refused, merely stating I would ponder it further. The emperor, unable to restrain himself any longer, summoned me to the palace once more. "Your relationship with Chang Le seems rather amicable." I knelt before him, softly replying, "I am unworthy of such praise." Upon raising my gaze, he awaited our eyes to meet before asking, "You do not harbor resentment towards me for my previous small punishment, do you?" I dared not reveal my emotions. The commoner has no grievances. I merely feared your disdain, which is why I returned to the princess's residence, seeking merely a means of livelihood. The emperor chuckled lightly, summoning the royal physician to examine my pulse. The physician was a familiar face. We had encountered one another at the Chu residence. As I extended my hand, I awkwardly curled my fingers. The royal physician noted the ligature marks on my wrist, a result of my time at the princess's residence. He reported to the emperor that I bore numerous external injuries and had a frail constitution, requiring considerable recuperation. The emperor feigned a sigh, seizing the opportunity to retain me in the palace. Though Chang Ning is delightful, she ultimately indulges in her whims. You shall continue to serve me from now on. For the time being, remain in the palace and focus on restoring your health. I expressed my gratitude for the emperor's magnanimity and then broached the subject of Heelin Yi. The princess seeks his life. I implore your majesty to save him. The emperor's expression momentarily stiffened, and I realized that this was the most perilous moment for Heelin Yi. The princess desired his demise, and the emperor too had no wish for him to survive. As I am but a blade, I ought to remain unencumbered by attachment. I found myself, much like when I once begged for medicine before the princess, prostrating until my forehead bled, pleading with the emperor to grant Heelin Yi a chance at life. I profess my deep affection for him, declaring my willingness to sacrifice everything for him. Then let me see to what extent you are willing to go for him. I recall that the crown prince recently dealt him 50 lashes, nearly beating him to death. He sought to compel me to implicate the crown prince. Coincidentally, I had no desire to see the crown prince prosper either. After receiving my orders, I mingled with the imperial guard. The swift annihilation of the Chu family had taken many by surprise, and numerous individuals were closely watching me. As I entered the capital's administrative office, my memorials fluttered in like snowflakes, all directed to the palace. The emperor, uninterested in trifling matters, ordered me to attend court and confront them directly. They accused me of treason, claiming I extinguished the Chu family for my selfish desires. The most compelling witness was none other than the recently released Princess Fulan. She had wed Chu Huaiming not long ago and had not involved herself in the Chu family's affairs. Even if she were to testify, she could not be implicated. Ultimately, she was of royal blood. Once her innocence was established, she was instructed to draft a divorce decree, completely severing her ties with the Chu family, and was subsequently released. She ought to have entirely distanced herself from the Chu family, yet now, for the sake of Chu Huaiming, she stood in court, accusing me of wrongdoing. They slander me, claiming that my enmity with Chu Huaiming stems from matters of the heart, accusing me of inflicting harm upon him, and yet they persist with the same old narrative. It appears they are only capable of tarnishing my name through romantic intrigue, attacking my innocence. Why would they presume that I would be ensnared by such trivialities? I am but a refugee who has come to the capital, having endured every hardship imaginable in my flight. Would it not be absurd to succumb to despair and end my life in an attempt to vindicate my honor over mere slander? I allow them to assail me, even permitting the rumors of my selling myself in a brothel to serve Chu Huaiming to circulate. Once they realize my indifference and exhaust their arsenal of accusations without a hint of originality, I approach the emperor to pay my respects, subsequently unveiling the evidence of the Chu family's transgressions. The Chu family has coerced honest citizens into selling their lands and souls, misappropriating military funds, and jeopardizing our defenses. The evidence is irrefutable, which I have presented with great effort. In my previous life, upon assuming control of the Chu family, I learned the extent of their corrupt dealings. Though they lived in relative affluence, it was all built upon the most unsavory of profits, a damning liability. I toiled tirelessly, pouring my own resources into cleansing the Chu family's reputation. During this time, I was beset with worry, nearly losing my first child. When he was born frail, I spared no expense on the finest medicine and devoted myself day and night to his care, nurturing him to health. Yet, when he cast me into despair, he lamented having been conceived within me, asserting that a woman like Princess Fulan should have been his true mother. The memories of my past life weigh heavily upon my heart, yet they serve as my motivation to rise above. I serve the emperor and the Chu family, lacking in loyalty, virtue, and filial piety, has committed grievous offenses worthy of punishment. Since you all seem to have investigated my personal affairs so thoroughly, you must surely be aware of the Chu family's crimes as well. Or do you conspire against me to express your discontent to the emperor? I approached the princess and grasped her chin, stating, I killed him because he was guilty and deserved death. Pray, do not misunderstand, my lady, and speak only of matters that amuse. Just as your safe emergence proves my fairness, princess, know that my animosity towards you is no less than that I hold for Chu Huaiming. The princess glared at me, her eyes ablaze, before spitting on me. It was not blood, but rather the unpleasant scent of vomit that accompanied her retching. I too felt the urge to gag. After she finished, she fainted, leaving our argument unresolved. Everyone else, seizing the opportunity, feigned concern for her, swiftly changing the subject. After all, they could not contend with me, and further debate would only lead to their own entrapment. The emperor summoned the physician to attend to Princess Fulan, who revealed that she was already with child. Everyone hastily assumed it to be the illegitimate offspring of Chu Huaiming. However, I recalled the secret the physician had disclosed to me after last examining Princess Fulan. Is this child truly of the Chu lineage? As I contemplated the implications this child might hold for the situation, the emperor requested that the physician also attend to my own health. The injury on my forehead had yet to heal, and I had lost all the weight I had painstakingly gained while near Healinyi. I initially believed the emperor's intent was to show concern for my well-being as he prepared to reinstate me. Yet the physician discerned another pulse of pregnancy within me. I was tempted to inquire whether this was genuine. 2 pregnant women in succession. Does that not seem absurd? My encounters with Healinyi had been fleeting, our union occurring only twice, The physician could only have detected a pregnancy from our wedding day when I had conceived immediately. I placed my hand on my abdomen, thinking that this child could not have arrived at a more inconvenient time. The emperor, showing compassion for the princess after her tribulations, decided to keep her in the palace and inquired how I wished to handle this child. I perceived the emperor's gaze, one that suggested he was deliberately letting everyone know of this matter. The physician had been attending to my health daily. How could he only now discover my pregnancy? I feigned ignorance, requesting guidance from the emperor. He presented me with two choices: either terminate the pregnancy and execute Healing, securing my place by his side as a tool for his use, or carry the child to term, while Healing, known for his valor, would be sent to the battlefield for training. Should he emerge as a formidable weapon, or should he perish, it would not hinder my continued utility. Given the current state of affairs, it was evident that the emperor was in dire need of capable individuals, especially in the military, where he struggled to exert command. Thus, casting aside someone he neither favored nor intended to eliminate into the army was a sound strategy. I had previously made a promise to send Healing to the military, and this was precisely the plan I was pursuing. Now that the emperor had broached the subject, I feigned deep contemplation before selecting the latter course. The emperor's demeanor remained impassive. Then let us send him away directly. You are newly pregnant. There is no need for unnecessary farewell. You need not bid farewell to Healing. He stated that I was physically weak, so I need not trouble myself with goodbyes. Yet the matters concerning the prince were still entrusted to me. My pregnancy aligned with that of Princess Fulan. While she consumed nourishing medicines to safeguard her pregnancy within the palace, I busied myself gathering evidence against the prince. When she began to show, I stormed into the prince's residence and imprisoned him in the imperial dungeon. As she suffered through sleepless nights due to her pregnancy, I interrogated the prince within his confines, compelling him to confess. Our paths intersected only briefly, as I remained preoccupied with my own affairs. This night, Princess Fulan found herself restless due to her condition and, with the assistance of palace attendants, wandered near the imperial hospital. It was a rare chance for us to cross paths and engage in idle conversation. She, with her burgeoning belly, blocked my path. Let us converse. I had just crushed 7 of the prince's fingers and fractured 3 of his ribs. My body still bore the stench of blood from the dungeon, and I was too fatigued to keep my eyes open. There was little to discuss between us, my lady. Do as you please. I attempted to brush past her, eager to leave, but she called out to me, challenging me. Did you feel no remorse when you killed Xu Huaiming, despite his deep affection for you? Indeed, these were the tiresome, nonsensical words I had anticipated. I quickened my pace to depart, yet she continued. Before his death, Xu Huaiming entrusted me with a box containing predictions of future events. I had instructed someone to verify the contents, and to my astonishment, everything he claimed had indeed come to pass. I halted, casting a glance at the attendant supporting her, my mind brewing with murderous intent. But this was the imperial palace, and considering the princess's penchant for theatrics, the emperor likely already knew of these matters. I dismissed the thought of silencing her and asked what she wished to discuss. She shooed away her attendant and, extending her hand, sweetly said, "Support me. You haven't forgotten how to attend to others in your brief tenure as a minister, have you?" I had never served anyone, and at that moment, I could scarcely be bothered with her condescending remarks. I grasped her hand and led her into an unoccupied room, then coldly inquired, "Shall we speak now? If you continue with your sentimental drivel, I will take my leave. I am truly exhausted." While she slept through the day, I had gone over half a year without a decent night's rest. Princess Fulan regarded me not as an equal, but as someone of lesser significance, dismissing my threats. She persisted in her self-absorbed narrative, just as she had intruded upon my wedding day, attempting to abduct me to become Xu Huaiming's concubine. Now she recounted the intricacies of her relationship with Xu Huaiming, portraying me as the villain who shattered their exquisite romance. She spoke of how everything was once idyllic, how Xu Huaiming had heroically rescued her, and how they had fallen in love at first sight. Yet, at that fateful moment, he had sought me out at the brothel, claiming a connection with me, unwilling to witness my degradation. Naturally, I had never entered the brothel, leaving him with naught but disappointment. Following that, he sought to marry Princess Fulan, asserting that he was concerned for my fragile state, insisting on taking me as a concubine to provide me refuge within the Chu household. He considered me in every regard, sacrificing his own interests for mine, only to be met with this. She continued to lament her tragic love story, yet I felt as though I had consumed something foul. Your Highness, the pitiable and delicate maiden who cannot survive without a man. Do you think such words are fitting for me? Do not speak of my current role as a blade for the Emperor, revealing my brilliance. Even before this, I bore no relation to such descriptions. Very well. If you insist on discussing these matters with me, allow me to speak first. Chu Huaiming, enamored by your status and beauty, cannot relinquish his hold on me, striving to grasp both, only to end up with nothing but an empty basket. This is the so-called great love you speak of. In his former life, he was fixated on the illustrious lineage and graceful demeanor of Princess Fulan. Now that he has easily obtained her, he begins to reminisce about my efforts in managing his household and paving his path to success. He longs for my gentle demeanor, recalling the kindness I bestowed upon him in his past life. His tolerance for mistakes is exceedingly high, despite his indecisiveness, wanting both sides. He is still surrounded by those who empathize with him and speak well of him. Even in death, countless individuals embellish his image. That day in the court, I laid bare the evidence of the Chu family's misdeeds, yet they still claimed that I was consumed by love turned to hate, vilifying me instead, attempting to elevate Chu Huaiming to the status of a lovesick fool. Your Highness, in the past, Chu Huaiming did not save you. You should continue to be the carefree and joyful princess you once were, for you have never endured the suffering of today. In her previous life, Princess Fulan was the brightest scenery in the capital. She was free and passionate, which made her the scarlet mark upon Chu Huaiming's heart. Although she perished early, her existence was undoubtedly far superior to this life. I realized that no amount of asserting my innocence will suffice. However, when I mention her past, the princess becomes visibly moved. She no longer speaks of Chu Huaiming but instead mentions the plans he left behind. I have already presented the items to the Emperor. As for you, your relevance to him has now diminished. She smiled and then deliberately collided with me. I deftly evaded her, and she fell to the ground, blood spilling forth. She clutched her abdomen, wailing in distress. Why do you wish to harm my child? Is she attempting to ensnare me with her life? I find myself at a loss for words, pondering that had she employed this ploy when I first ended Chu Huaiming, it might have been effective. But how much time has passed, and how much has the situation evolved? What was once is no longer. She poses no threat to me now. The physician hurriedly arrived to tend to Princess Fulan, who had gone into premature labor after a night of turmoil. I glanced at the time, realizing it was already autumn, the very day I gave birth to my eldest son in my previous life. Both were premature births at the same time, yet Princess Fulan had never given birth in her past life. This led me to suspect that the child within her womb is the very wolf who turned against me after I painstakingly raised it in my previous existence. After sleeping for 2 hours, at dawn, I voluntarily approached the Emperor to confess my transgressions. Regarding Princess Fulan's injury and premature labor, the Emperor did not express anger. Rather, he inquired further. You came to see me solely to discuss this matter? Indeed, Princess Fulan sought me out yesterday for another issue. But I deemed it mere deceptive words that need not reach His Majesty. Is it mere deception, or is there some truth to it that you dare not reveal? Hoping I would not pursue the matter? Naturally, it is mere deception. If anyone truly possessed foreknowledge of future events, they would be a deity descended from the heavens, not easily vanquished by my hands. The Emperor fell silent for a moment, raising his hand to summon the eunuch to present Chu Huaiming's belongings. Once the eunuch handed them to me, he remarked, "Examine these items closely. They truly make me question your intentions in your relentless pursuit of Chu Huaiming's life." His tone was harsh, yet unlike last time when he struck me with an inkstone, he refrained from violence this time. My position is significantly improved compared to before. I found myself curious about his writings. As I perused each letter, I discovered that alongside the significant events that might unfold, every missive contained the phrase, "My beloved wife." How I regret my past decisions. Not only did he write about his future prospects, but he also detailed my role within them. No wonder he felt such regret, willing to sever ties with Princess Fulan to pursue me. It became evident how crucial I was to his life's narrative. How utterly pathetic. Upon finishing, I chuckled lightly. After placing the items down, I bowed my head to the emperor, offering my congratulations. Congratulations, your majesty. He inquired with interest. What joy do you speak of? I replied cheerfully. Naturally, I rejoice in your acquisition of me, as it is akin to adding wings to a tiger. I had no idea I possessed such capabilities, but if I can assist your majesty in wielding power more adeptly, it is indeed a blessing for me and joy for you. The emperor suddenly burst into laughter, acknowledging the reason in my words. He then inquired about the status of the crown prince. I presented the confession I had just drafted the previous night, and upon reviewing it, he nodded in satisfaction, lamenting, "Initially, I intended for you to handle the crown prince's affairs through seduction. With your intelligence, you surely recognized his affections for you." Deeply unsettled, I managed a smile and responded, "The crown prince is surrounded by beauties, as long as the task is accomplished. The means are inconsequential. Indeed, now that Fulon's child has been born, yours should be due shortly as well. Rest well and attend to the birth before discussing further. The final blow is always the most critical, should the emperor show leniency, considering familial bonds, and let the crown prince go. He will undoubtedly seek retribution once he rises again. For now, I can only acquiesce, as the crown prince is already nearly incapacitated by my actions, likely unable to serve the emperor further." Upon the emperor's men arriving to take over the crown prince's affairs, I found him sprawled on the ground like a lifeless rag doll. The jade beads he once gifted me were stuffed into his mouth, most having been swallowed, rendering him voiceless. As he pulled the beads out, he realized his throat was already damaged. With a final gasp, he assessed me. This woman is truly ruthless. In the days that followed, his commentary on me evolved into, "This person is indeed formidable." Eventually, he no longer dared to speak of me behind my back. Yet, all of this transpired long after the fact. I currently face a multitude of challenges. Merely bringing this child into the world will demand half of my life. Similar to my previous life, where I toiled for the Chu family, I now labor for my own future, still unable to nurture this pregnancy properly. Despite being at a similar stage in gestation, my belly is considerably smaller than Princess Fulon's. I initially feared I would endure the same agonies as in my past life, yet I soon delivered the child. It was a small, red-skinned creature, quite unattractive. A girl, born at term, yet weighing only slightly over 4 pounds. I played with her, inquiring how the emperor intended to arrange for her. The physician took my pulse and prescribed nourishing medicine while also offering congratulations. His Majesty is considerate of you. A lone mother in the capital, arranging for her to accompany the princess as a companion, with all caretaking responsibilities accounted for. You are about to soar high. It seems that Healing is faring well on the battlefield. Otherwise, the emperor would not place such importance on our child. Although I have not received news from Healing in this 10th month, the emperor's attentiveness to my pregnancy confirms his safety. Alas, I pity this child, uncertain if she will grow up safely, or if she will be led astray within the palace. I continue to play with her, expression neutral as I express my gratitude for the emperor's kindness, explaining that my current condition prevented me from performing the customary courtesies and requesting that he convey my heartfelt sentiments. Soon after, the emperor sent someone to inquire if I was dissatisfied with his arrangements. I shook my head in denial, merely stating, after 10 months apart, feelings have grown distant, leaving me somewhat bewildered. The emperor, longing for an opportunity to summon Healing back, now grants me the privilege to call him from the battlefield. The autumn breeze was brisk as we reunited. The month-and-a-half journey would allow me to complete my confinement and enable the emperor to delegate my responsibilities to others. On the eve of Healing's return to the capital, he finally assigned me a new task. You and General Healing are indeed husband and wife. Take the time to reminisce. He wishes for me to win him over. Spend more time with the child. Father and daughter should bond to nurture their affection. Regrettably, the child born was a daughter, yet this presents an opportunity to conceive a second child. No, I find myself rather fortunate that this pregnancy yielded a girl. Had it been a boy, I fear it would have entailed myriad troubles. Upon Healing's return from the palace audience, when he was ushered in by the eunuchs, I was engaged in a playful game of tossing my daughter high into the air. His countenance, upon seeing me cradling a child, bore the weight of the world. Our eyes met, and I casually remarked, "You're back?" He remained rooted at the threshold, hesitating for an extended moment before finally stepping inside at my continued urging. "Little sister, have you been faring well during this time? You seem to possess a robust constitution. Your cheeks are quite rosy," he inquired, his mannerisms and words exuding an awkward familiarity. "You ought to have someone who understands your needs by your side. Who is the father of this child? Is he reliable? If you face any grievances, do not hesitate to tell me. I vowed to treat you as a sister, and I shall protect you well. I must tell you, I have achieved quite a bit. They now address me as the great general. I never imagined I would rise to such heights. And it is indeed thanks to your influence." It was then I discerned the reason for his discomfort. He suspected that I had taken another suitor after his departure. Rolling my eyes, I questioned, "What exactly do you think of me? I have been so preoccupied in the capital that I barely have time to breathe. And yet you doubt my fidelity? You are now a person of status, and they say you are a close aide to the emperor. A rough fellow like me is hardly worthy of you." He maintained his awkward demeanor, seemingly reverting to how he was when we first parted. How could he still be so insecure despite now being a great general? "Then perhaps I shall find a new father for your daughter another day. Let us see if there are any suitable candidates." I often wore a stern expression in front of others, but to feign a facade in his presence felt quite exhausting. My mood was already soured, and being misunderstood by him only served to deepen my annoyance. I retorted sarcastically, "The child is mine. And you cannot even choose a name for her. What sort of involvement is left for you?" I was aware he would not linger long, so I suggested, "Take care of her for the next few days so you may cultivate a bond as father and daughter." While my intentions were to foster their connection, despite our differing aspirations regarding the emperor, we were united in our desire for Hilanya to return home. Hilanya is a commendable man. He will protect me and cherish the daughter he has only just met. He understands the hardships I endured in the capital and strives to provide me with a better life. He has reserved all the emperor's rewards for me, boasting of the vast desert landscapes and his newfound prowess. He refrains from mentioning his struggles, instead asserting that should he die one day, I should seek a better man and not remain bound to him, nor suffer in silence for his sake. In the past, I had begged the princess and the emperor, deliberately portraying my plight to engrave it into his memory. During our passionate moments, the Prince of Chung met his demise in the imperial prison. The emperor likely did not wish for his death and had the imperial physician administer the finest treatments to prolong his life. However, my actions had been too severe, and the prince could not be saved. Following his death, the emperor could only permit me to continue with tasks left unfinished, the extermination of his clan. This time, the one leading the charge alongside me was Hilanya. The emperor sought to unveil my true nature to him, yet I was merely avenging. I failed to comprehend how this would sow discord between us. Perhaps for those who reside in lofty positions, the manner in which tasks are executed and the distinctions of right and wrong hold significant weight. Upon witnessing my ruthlessness, Hilanya may have deemed me unworthy of womanhood, thus distancing himself and harboring disdain. However, for those of us whose lives are as fragile as weeds, it matters not whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. Hilanya appeared quite at ease, exclaiming, "Little sister, your work is exhilarating. Had I known of such thrilling endeavors, I would have joined in much earlier." Our conversation flowed easily, yet we uncovered numerous women who had suffered unspeakable fates within the Prince of Chung's residence. Had I not ascended step by step over the corpses of others, I might have become one of them. The prince had an infatuation with me, yet many women caught his eye. After his fall, numerous abused women, on the brink of death, beseeched those who entered the prince's abode, not for salvation, but to end their suffering. Thus, when I learned of Hilanya aligning himself with the prince, I was taken aback, driven to rescue him, and uncharacteristically rebuffed the prince. After slaying him, I became a weapon wielded by the emperor. The evidence against the Chu family was genuine, yet the incriminating evidence against the prince was fabricated by me. As a noble, even with numerous transgressions, his family would not face extermination. It was I who, in accordance with the emperor's wishes, coerced a confession, leading to his downfall. With my evidence in hand, The emperor could place his trust in me. Yet, he harbored dissatisfaction regarding the progress between Hilanya and myself. Ironically, Hilanya proved to be an enigma, devoid of any vulnerabilities. He could only be cast back to the frontier to fight, continuing his life as a dissolute ruler. Years swiftly passed, and once more we approached the time of his demise in the previous life. The princess would again seek to consolidate power by elevating the youngest prince to the throne, controlling the administration herself. My role in this would be to assist her in administering poison to the emperor, allowing him to pass away without obstructing her ascent. In the information left by Chu Huaiming regarding the future, the ascension of the princess was notably absent. After all, he too intended to pledge allegiance to her. The so-called last was merely a contingency for himself. My swift blade had disrupted his plans. With the princess seizing control, she found herself in need of capable individuals. And I transformed from a mere weapon into her most trusted female official. When others spoke of me, they recounted my betrayal of the princess, claiming I had savagely bitten the hands that once fed me while serving the emperor. The princess interrupted, declaring such talk to be unfounded, affirming that I was her most trusted aide. Once the interlocutor departed, I emerged from behind the screen. The princess then said to me, "In this endeavor to clear the court of malign influences, General He's contributions are invaluable. Unfortunately, I possess nothing further to reward him. Perhaps I could arrange a marriage for him? What do you think? Hilanya as my husband? When I once sought to eliminate him, you did not intervene. Ingchun, one must sacrifice to gain. Should you and Hilanya become husband and wife, how can I find peace?" I sighed, reflecting that in my past life, I had at least children surrounding me in the lively Chu household, and when I ventured out, I was met with countless praises. Now, though I stood at the pinnacle, capable of opposing the princess, I found myself devoid of a single confidant. This cold, unyielding power truly was quite comfortable. I squinted and smiled at her, saying, "Please, matters of this nature, Hilanya can decide for himself. The princess need not consult me." She did not discreetly inquire with Hilanya. Rather, she directly arranged his marriage in court, and the chosen bride was none other than the long-absent Princess Fulan. With the royal lineage dwindling, Hilanya was not a young man anymore, and the only suitable royal women available were limited to Princess Fulan. Hilanya appeared particularly surprised, locking eyes with me, while I merely met his gaze with indifference, revealing no trace of emotion. His expression bore a hint of grievance, as he directly stated, "I have a wife. Why would I marry another? I promised her that in this lifetime, I would take only her as my spouse, not even a concubine. I beseech you to retract your decree." It was the Princess Fulan who had forced me to become Chu Huaiming's concubine in the past. Now, Hilanya declared that even if the Princess Fulan offered herself as a concubine, he would refuse. I could hardly believe he had forgotten the humiliation of years gone by. This White Lotus was undoubtedly making such declarations in front of everyone intentionally, wishing to humiliate the Princess Fulan. Truly, he harbored a grudge. His temperament was quite compatible with mine. The princess was momentarily stifled by Hilanya's words. Yet she could no longer act as casually as before, disregarding his life as if it were inconsequential. She had to endure. As she had said yesterday, our alliance made it difficult for her to find peace. Hilanya and I were perfectly poised to counterbalance her while being acutely aware of the suffering of the common people. Why could we not join hands to advance together and seek the welfare of the populace? Must she sever her own limbs? Nevertheless, I was somewhat surprised by Hilanya's steadfastness in supporting me. With the princess ascending to power, I no longer needed to wield a knife. Yet throughout the process of being a weapon, I had grasped considerable power in my hands. Hilanya claimed to possess ambition, yet had settled into a mundane routine, spending his days caring for his daughter and clinging to me, lamenting the years of separation. Most of the time, I indulged him and placed my trust in him. After all, the original reason I sought him out was that he was easy to manipulate. Even now, that notion remains. Hilanya, I hold the most significant leverage over him. The information I once revealed about the future served as both his ladder to success and his Achilles heel. His initial victories had come too easily. If I so desired, I could fabricate a crime at any moment and strike him down. Yet, he truly treats me well, so well that I would willingly feign a lifetime of affection, so well that I need not utter threats to hurt his feelings. After the humiliation of the Princess Fulan, she approached me once more, but the tides had turned, and I ordered my people to expel her. A child had accompanied her, weaving through the crowd to embrace my leg, calling out sweetly, "Mother." He did not bear much resemblance to my son from my past life. Yet his eyes mirrored those of my child, ambitious, greedy, and perpetually unsatisfied, forever yearning for what did not belong to him. As I drew my sword from its sheath, a flash of white light glimmered, but Lan Yi restrained me. He whispered urgently in my ear, "The princess is watching closely. Do not give her any leverage." I was acutely aware of the princess's predatory gaze and recognized that the child, who should have been called Chu Shu Han but now bore the surname of the monarch, was half a royal relative. Should I kill him, it would provide the princess with the perfect justification to act against me. Yet, I believed this child must be eliminated. To raise a tiger is to invite calamity. I would rather endure the princess's scrutiny momentarily than allow the murderer who had caused my demise in my previous life to remain. Lan Yi only knew I had been reborn but was unaware of the events that had transpired in my past life, which was why he stood in my way. As I pondered my gains and losses, my daughter approached. "This is my mother. Don't you have your own mother? Why are you trying to take mine?" He reached out to push my daughter away, pouting as he exclaimed, "Nonsense. This is my mother. I am the only child of mother. You are the one stealing my mother." Though he had gained memories from his past life, he had never learned to conceal his emotions. Perhaps life with Princess Fulan had not been kind, causing his feelings to become more extreme. Lan Yi rushed forward to protect our daughter. My sword was drawn once more, severing his outstretched hand. Chu Shu Han, who had been meticulously protected in my previous life, had now become the child of Princess Fulan. Though she paid him little attention, he was raised in luxury, shielded from suffering. Upon losing his hand, he immediately fainted from the pain. I ordered him to be sent to the palace for treatment, announcing along the way with drums and gongs that the son of the princess had come to claim me as his mother. I could only wonder what schemes were brewing in his heart. With purpose, I sought out the enraged princess, who barely glanced at Chu Shu Han's condition before exclaiming, "How insufferable! This son is just like his father, a heartless wretch. I struggled to give birth to him, yet he runs to you.
Who knows what seduction you employed?"
As I beheld the princess's fierce expression, I recalled the tragic demise of my past life. My thoughts then were likely not dissimilar to hers. Perhaps it was all about power. They love only themselves. Those who ascend the ladder of success are cherished most dearly. In my previous life, I had poured my heart and soul into elevating Chu Huaiming to the position of Deputy Minister of Revenue and had guided Chu Shu Han to achieve second-class honors. Yet, despite my efforts, others dismissed my achievements as a mark of lowly birth, whispering in their ears that they had stagnated not due to their own inadequacies, but because of me dragging them down. Over time, they grew resentful of my assertiveness, ultimately leading to a rift between us. They foolishly believed that had I married Princess Fulan, everything would have been different. Since her last failed scheme against me, Princess Fulan had come to recognize her position and now harbored a fear of me. Upon witnessing my demeanor, cold and indifferent, she found herself at a loss for words. She left in a fit of rage, while Chu Shu Han, having fainted from pain, awoke to call my name. Having already forgotten the princess who could no longer assist him, even with my treatment of him, he still wished to claim me as his mother. I chuckled softly and asked, "What makes you think I would acknowledge you?" He grasped at my clothing. "Mother, it is me. You have memories from your past life. Don't you? I was deceived by wicked people. I know my wrongs now. Will you forgive me? I will make amends." The resemblance between father and son was uncanny. Both were equally selfish. Both believed that if they merely turned back, I would joyfully extend my forgiveness. But I had lost a life. This was a deep-seated enmity. What right did they have to expect my forgiveness? I pried his remaining hand away, my demeanor icy. "You seem unaware of Chu Huaiming's fate. Perhaps you should inquire with your current mother." Chu Huaiming had been executed alongside his entire family.
Before his death,
he had grown distant from the princess, and after his demise, she had sought vengeance on his behalf, only to fail. The child born after a struggle at the gates of death displayed an unusual demeanor compared to his peers. At that moment, she began to believe my words, harboring a profound hatred for Chu Huaiming, who had led her astray. When Chu Shuhan approached her for answers, she sharply retorted, "What past life? What parental affection? She personally killed Chu Huaiming. She is a madwoman. And you still wish to cling to her? You are pathetic." Chu Huaiming, in disbelief, ran through the rain to confront me. The doorman blocked his path, and he knelt at the entrance, pleading to see me. I ignored him. Soaked by the rain, coupled with a wound infection, he developed a high fever, and in his delirium, he envisioned the tragic end of his past life. His father had departed decisively, even in death, attempting to manipulate him. It was to fulfill his father's desires that he had treated his mother thus and arranged for his marriage to Princess Fulan. Yet, all his efforts resulted only in universal disdain. Not only had he failed to establish a rapport with the princess, but he had also offended her. The news of his mother's death had not been widely publicized. A month later, the princess inquired about her whereabouts. She succumbed to illness, I replied. She was skeptical and commanded her hidden guards to torture me for 3 days and nights until I divulged the truth. Then she raged, accusing me of killing her strategist, demanding that I be dismembered and fed to the dogs. At that moment, I realized that it was not my lowly birth that had dragged me down. Clearly, the princess had covertly elevated me out of consideration for her own reputation. That old wretch had doomed me. Upon my rebirth, I vowed to protect my mother diligently, relying on her to ascend the ranks. Chu Shuhan, drenched and feverish, had lost his senses, muttering about regret and hurling curses at Chu Huaiming before collapsing at the threshold. The doorman reported, yet I paid him no heed. He was a frail, premature child, recently injured, and the rain had led to an infection of his wound, resulting in his demise. When I learned of this incident, I felt a tinge of surprise. But Heelan Yi merely assisted me in wiping my hands, remarking that it was quite fitting. It saves you from soiling your hands. He brought this upon himself. However, the very next day, the princess's inquiries for retribution arrived. I responded candidly. He knelt and met his end by his own doing. What is that to me? The princess gazed at me with a complex expression. Do you not realize he was your child? This audacious little wretch, like his father, sought to ensnare me one last time. My brows furrowed, yet I soon burst into laughter. Had the princess lost her wits? He was the son of the princess of Fulan, older than my daughter by 2 months, even if it were a case of a cat swapping places with a prince. Such conditions were simply untenable. She slammed her hand on the table, exclaiming in fury, "You ought to know what I mean. That is a rebirth, a second chance, an opportunity to extend one's life by decades. Who would not be tempted, especially with 3 successful examples right before her?" I stubbornly feigned ignorance, playing the fool in her presence. The following day, she sought to dismiss me from my official post, and I took the opportunity to retire to my hometown. On the 3rd day, however, a flurry of chaotic memorials overwhelmed her. She relied on bitter herbal concoctions to sustain her while managing state affairs. Yet, 2 months later, natural disasters and man-made calamities ensued unceasingly, even threatening rebellion. The court's operations became sluggish, and she found herself constrained, her heart willing but her strength lacking. Holding the young emperor, she erupted with fury in the court. Some suggested I be summoned back, for I might possess the means to address the crisis. The princess, in another fit of rage, ordered the offenders to be dragged away and punished. Yet the following day, she still came to plead for my involvement, making 3 visits in humble supplication. She had never experienced such indignity. Ironically, I demanded she apologize to Heelan Yi for her past actions. In a fit of indignation, the princess left in a huff. A few days later, unable to bear the burden any longer, she returned, her hair noticeably sparser, gritting her teeth as she apologized to Heelan Yi and continued to beseech my assistance. Thus, I came to understand the nature of power. I felt elated, yet my mind was clearer than ever before. I recognized that I had revealed my true intentions. My future with her would be an endless battle. But to engage in such a contest with another was a source of boundless enjoyment. The recent demise of Chu Shohan often brought to mind matters from my previous life. Rather than elevating another man in a gamble for his sincerity, it was far more gratifying to stand atop the heights of power, wielding authority. After discussing state affairs for 3 hours, I clarified the chaotic situation entirely. Heelan Yi remained silent until the princess prepared to depart, at which point he remarked, "There will be no military calamity. It is but a tempest in a teapot. The princess need not worry." As I sipped tea to soothe my throat, I inadvertently spilled half a cup onto myself. The scalding liquid seeped through my heavy official robes, leaving only a warm sensation against my skin. Heelan Yi hurried over to assist me, concern etched on his face as he inquired whether I had burned myself. "How long has it been since you last called me little sister?" My question might have seemed perplexing to him. As he rushed to dry me off, he replied, "I have been a general for so many years. My old habits have long since changed. Besides, you are my wife, not my sister. I can distinguish between the two." When it came to matters of the heart, I felt ill-equipped to delve deeply. However, as he hastily tended to my wounds, I embraced him and said, "You've been working hard lately." "It is you who has borne the burden," he replied. He did not reject my affection, yet he did not actively reciprocate either. The initial fervor between us had long since faded. Heelan Yi now seemed to possess only indulgence towards me. Once, we were subservient to others, compelled by circumstance.
Now,
I am willing to grant you your freedom. Should you desire to pursue another woman, we can part ways amicably. This was far preferable to a stagnant existence, devoid of the vibrancy we once shared. I guided him from the mire, helping him ascend to the pinnacle of success, sparing him from a life-threatening ordeal.
now,
To return his freedom was a matter of mutual benefit. He shattered my myriad thoughts, for the first time revealing his brilliance before me. It left me feeling drained, unable to focus on other matters. I understood that Xu Huaiming had deeply wronged him, instilling a distrust of others. It was wise of him to wish to protect himself, and I hoped he would prioritize his own well-being. Rest assured, if you seek evidence, I am willing to be your sword, helping you stir the tides of change. But do not cast me aside. If you love me, say it plainly. Your sullen demeanor led me to believe you had grown weary of me. Otherwise, why would I push away someone so invaluable? In the princess's early reign, she wielded power through her position while the young emperor was still a child. However, as he matured, many clamored for her abdication, demanding the return of authority to the young emperor. This was their affair, and I had no intention of meddling. Yet the young emperor, brimming with pride, called for my daughter as hand in marriage during the princess's struggle with excessive power. He approached with an air of condescension, reminiscent of the former emperor and King Cheng. "I shall make her empress. Should you bear no sons, I can select someone from the royal kin to adopt, ensuring your line continues." At over 30 years of age, I was in my prime, invigorated by ambition. In my past life, I had been marked by crow's feet and graying hair. Yet now, under the influence of power, I appeared youthful, feeling more than capable of contending with the princess for 3 or even 5 decades. Thoughts of retirement had never crossed my mind, yet it was certainly not his place to concern himself with such matters. The idea of my daughter becoming empress was even more foreign to me. I forced a smile that did not reach my eyes, refraining from directly offending the young emperor. However, as I bid him farewell, I instructed those accompanying him to convey my regards to the princess, inquiring whether she was already aging and considering a regency, only to produce a fool instead. The princess, alarmed, sent me a letter that very night. "This is the sole heir of the royal bloodline. Heelan Yi must not be allowed to harm him." I had almost forgotten that Heelan Yi came from humble beginnings. Yet even a butcher does not slay indiscriminately. This man was truly jumpy, startled by a mere comment. I dispatched the Grand Tutor to re-educate the princess, urging her not to place undue importance on this scant lineage. Inwardly, I recalled Heelan Ye's words from long ago. Do nobles not possess their own worth? Should the princess be losing her faculties, a thorough cleansing might not be out of the question. Suppressing more radical thoughts, I informed my daughter of the situation, seeking her preference. Dressed in ill-fitting official robes, she studied her oversized cap. With an air of youthful vigor, her features combined the best of both of us. Now taller than me by half a head, she appeared poised and graceful. Yet upon hearing my words, she mimicked Heelan Yi, disdainfully spitting, "Mother, You have carved out a path for me to the heavens, granting me the chance to contend with the esteemed. Why would you bind my hands?" She tightened the overly loose belt of her robe and smiled at me sweetly. "But, mother, look at this attire." I understood she wished to voice her grievances, a stark contrast to her taciturn father. The ill-fitting robe was a reflection of their disdain for her, believing she could not stir the winds of change. Let it not be said that I could not procure even the most prestigious garments for her, be they of the third or first rank. However, should I extinguish my own light, she would become nothing more than a lamb for slaughter. In my past life, I had painstakingly elevated Chu Huaiming and Chu Shohan, yet I had little desire to revisit the aftermath. I merely offered her a choice, pointing her towards a path, while all else rested upon her own efforts. My daughter ceased her complaints, but leaned closer to massage my shoulders. "Mother, do not utter such ill-fated words. Quickly spit 3 times. May you live 1,000 years." Such words were ill-advised. I knew we had raised her with grand ambitions, yet without power or influence. To reveal her ambitions would be sheer folly. My daughter did not comprehend this, so I gently ruffled her hair. My actions were tender, yet my words remained cold. I stated, "I will not assist you. You must forge your own path." My daughter pondered for a long while. In a fleeting moment, she entertained a wicked thought, yearning to ascend to the throne as empress in order to compensate for her humble origins. Yet, she found herself unable to articulate such desires. Reluctantly, she relinquished the notion of nurturing 2 lives for an entire year and the notion of taking the young emperor's life into her own hands. Instead, she contemplated seizing control of the court as the Empress Dowager. As she entered the imperial court, she initially believed her motives were rooted in the pursuit of power. However, as she navigated the tumultuous path ahead, she came to grasp the intricacies of all the policies I had implemented, witnessing my oppressive measures against the young emperor, which ultimately served only to harm both him and myself. In silence, she found her peace and offered a respectful bow. The teacher's righteousness prevailed. The welfare of the people surpassed all else. I gently ruffled her hair once more. We, too, are among the multitude. Thus concludes the narrative. Thank you for your attention. And until we meet again in the next tale.